As I'm sure you all know by now, yesterday, Daniel Levy doubled down on gaslighting the Tottenham Hotspur fan base by talking about how important it is to run the club sustainably and not spend money unnecessarily, whilst also paying himself upwards of £4 million a year more than any other company director in the Premier League. Now look, I'll stick up for Levy where I feel like he has a point or does a good job, but the optics of his statement yesterday compared to the greed of his pay packet, well, I think it's downright shameful. Meanwhile, big Ange Postecoglou has discussed how he feels Spurs made a mistake with their squad building at the start of the season, and there's plenty of transfer talk too. All this and more on today's daily Tottenham Hotspur news with me, Barnaby Slater. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. But let's get started with some transfer talk before I move on to those financial results that the club released yesterday. Starting at Napoli, where former Tottenham boss Antonio Conte apparently wants Dejan Kulusevski to join him in Italy. It's believed that he's told Napoli's hierarchy to sign the Swede as a priority, demanding a more competitive squad to compete on multiple fronts next season. Now, you might hear this a lot from me during this episode today, but I feel like if we were to sell Kulusevski in the summer, there would be absolute riots at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. This is not a time to sell our best players who are under contract for a good period into the future. And Kulusevski, as I've said many times, could be a future Tottenham Hotspur captain. He really shows his leadership on and off the pitch. He's really improving as his time at Tottenham goes along, and his football is magnificent. In fact, I'm very excited to see this week on social media he's no longer in a protective boot, and hopefully that means there is a chance he could be fit for that Europa League two-legged quarter-final against Eintracht Frankfurt. We need to keep Dejan Kulusevski at the club, promote him up the hierarchy of the club, make him a vice-captain or a captain going forward, and show him that we believe he can be one of the leaders who can take us to glory. Meanwhile, the rumours of Christian Romero leaving the club and potentially going to Madrid, be that Atletico or Real Madrid, heat up even more. Apparently, Daniel Levy has told both Real and Atletico they would need to spend £100 million if they want to get Christian Romero out of the club this summer. He has 2 years left on his Tottenham Hotspur contract this summer. Also rumours this week that Christian Romero recently spoke on the phone with his compatriot and manager of Atletico Madrid, Diego Simeone, and is excited at the prospect of joining Atletico. Other reports say that Simeone considers Romero a top transfer priority and that Spurs value him at £67 million. So that is conflicting reports. Some saying that we value him at £67 million, some saying that Levy won't let him go for less than £100 million. Now, if I were to be a betting man, I'd say that the reality would be somewhere in between. I don't think realistically, even though Romero is a World Cup winner, even though he's a Copa America winner twice, and clearly one of the best centre-halves, especially ball-playing centre-halves in world football, I don't think realistically Levy will ever get anywhere near £100 million, especially considering how few games Romero has played for Spurs because of injuries and suspensions. However, I think if a club touched somewhere around £80 million, so in between those two reports of 67 and 100, then I do think that would probably be enough for Daniel Levy to say, okay, it's a good deal for us. We're kind of nearly doubling what we paid for him. And also, like I said, he hasn't played that many games and clearly is agitating for a move. Some other transfer reports which kind of, unfortunately, I think show where Tottenham are at the moment. Potentially going to be down to maybe 16th in the league after this game week if we lose at Stamford Bridge. I'm hoping that by saying we're definitely going to lose at Stamford Bridge, because we always do, I'm going to jinx it the other way and somehow we're going to put on our best performance of the season and turn them over there. But if we do what we always do and lose them, we'll probably be 16th. And as a result, lots of vultures circling our club for some of our best players. I've already mentioned the interest in Kulusevski from Napoli. Well, apparently we have already rejected inquiries about Lucas Bergvall's availability this summer, with both Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund interested. Tottenham consider him untouchable, and he has to be. Lucas Bergvall is one of the only shining lights of this appalling season in the league so far. He has really shown his adaptability, his ability to really show his levels, even at the young age of 18, in the Premier League so early into his Tottenham career. And we need to be building teams around the likes of Lucas Bergvall and Dejan Kulusevski and not being interested in potentially selling him. And again, just like I mentioned with Romero, really, how much money would it take to get Lucas Bergvall out of his Tottenham contract now? It would take £100 million, because that is how talented the boy is going to be. Some other reports that Spurs are indeed eyeing a move once again, for about the fourth time in his career, for Manchester City star Jack Grealish, but not surprisingly, of course, he would have to take a pay cut. He's currently on £300,000 a week for the Abu Dhabi club, and Spurs have a wage structure that means we have never ever gone above 200 grand a week. And if he got that, he would be on a par with Son Heung-min. Tottenham are famous under Daniel Levy for giving a good bonus scheme, so maybe only 200 grand a week basic pay, but then if performance-related bonuses are hit, then they can earn more on top. For me, I have to say, and let me know what you think in the comments, I think the time for Tottenham to potentially go for Jack Grealish is gone. I just don't think he fits what we're trying to do. He's going to be on too much wages. And also, just when I watch him at Man City now, he played a little bit at the weekend, and I just watched him kind of jogging about a bit, and I don't know, I feel like he's lost his desire, his motivation. I do think it's not his fault. Listen, I think if you're earning 300 grand a week, I don't care who you play for, but very, very difficult to get motivated. And there are far more examples in football of players who have been given absolutely top whack wages who then do not live up to their potential than there are those who are maybe more like Ronaldo or Messi, who it doesn't matter what you pay them, they still just want to score, they want to assist, they want to be the man of the match in every single game. And I just, from everything Guardiola says and the amount of times that Jack Grealish hasn't started for Man City since he's gone there from Aston Villa, I just don't think he has forced himself into Manchester City's first team nearly enough. And therefore, I don't really want him to come for a late career sojourn at Tottenham Hotspur. Meanwhile, Don Fabio Paratici apparently back doing work for Spurs. He's understood to have put Torino's Samuel Ricci and Atalanta star Ederson back on Spurs' radar. Ederson is a defensive midfielder who Tottenham have had on their list for a long, long time. He also interests other clubs, including Liverpool. But Paratici, who obviously has all the contacts in Italy, maybe him staying at Tottenham Hotspur once his ban ends could mean us getting some of those Italian players we're interested in through the door. Let's see what happens. Also, more reports that Tottenham now leading the race to sign Angel Gomez from Lille. He's on a free transfer this summer and has attracted interest from clubs in France, Spain and Germany. And also a report this week from Plettigol, initially our German nemesis, but who I think has gone up in our estimation since he got the Matthias Tell news right when we got him from Bayern Munich. Of course, Plettigol is the German journalist who ignorantly put a Bayern Munich shirt with the number 9 on it in front of Harry Kane whilst he was still a Tottenham Hotspur player. Well, Plettigol says that Spurs are one of several Premier League clubs interested in Hugo Larsson, valued at €60 million. So keep an eye on that one. Also reports that Tottenham had a bid of £35 million rejected in January from Southampton for Tyler Dibbling, who is now being heavily talked about all across English media as the next big hope. Obviously, Southampton have put a ridiculous value of £100 million on him. Apparently, there's more chance that Tottenham could have got him in the January window if they'd bid £55 million. It'll be interesting to see what he actually goes for because, of course, he is going to be in a relegated team and will be playing in the Championship next season. So Southampton will have to accept some kind of lower offer, be that from Spurs or Man United or one of the numerous other clubs from across Europe interested in him. Also, a bit of an interesting report that Tottenham are still apparently keen on signing 26-year-old defender Edmund Tapsoba from Bayer Leverkusen. He was on Spurs' list a couple of seasons ago before we bought Mickey van der Ven. I thought that one had gone away. Chelsea and Newcastle also interested in him as well. And apparently he can be bought from Bayer Leverkusen for £46 million. Jonathan Tah likely to leave there as well. I've heard reports this week, though, that Xabi Alonso will stay at Bayer Leverkusen as manager, despite the fact that Real Madrid are sniffing around him, as they're not sure whether Carlo Ancelotti will stay in Madrid longer than this summer. Another blast from the past, as reports that Spurs have reignited their interest long-term in Milan Skriniar, the Inter Milan player who's now on loan at Turkey. He's understood to be back on Tottenham's list of centre-backs. I mean, is what is happening here in terms of this transfer talk that Fabio Paratici is back in the door? So a lot of these journalists have just gone back through their old emails and seen who Paratici was interested in before his ban and dug them back up and said they're going to be interested in him again. I cannot see Milan Skriniar coming to Spurs, especially if big Ange Postecoglou sticks around, but I'll be talking a bit more about that later. Johnny Cardoso had another good weekend. He's playing really well for Real Betis, and he's given some comments on his potential move to Spurs. He said, "I can't lie, it's true that it's something that gives me confidence, that makes me feel valued because I'm doing a good job." Also, some talk that Spurs were approached in January by Flamengo for a potential loan move or permanent transfer for Richarlison, but Flamengo from Brazil only offered £16 million. Tottenham were only interested in a permanent deal and wanted around double that money if they were going to sell him. Apparently, Richarlison is reluctant at this stage of his career to go home to Brazil, fearing it would make it hard for him to return to any of Europe's top leagues. Listen, I'll say what I always say about Richarlison. He needs to play more games. He needs to get fit and he needs to stay fit. He hasn't played nearly enough at Spurs. And it's a shame because as far as I was aware, he wasn't injury prone when he was at Everton or Watford. So it just seems like something that has really kicked into gear at Spurs. And not just only in Ange Postecoglou's time either, even when Antonio Conte was still the manager. And then some final transfer talk is that River Plate of Argentina are interested in Alejo Veliz, who's currently on loan at Espanyol from Spurs. However, a deal has not progressed yet because Veliz wants to carry on in Europe once his loan in Spain ends. Okay, some interesting quotes over the last 24 hours from Big Ange Postecoglou, who seems to be coming out fighting because he is under so much pressure at Tottenham Hotspur at the moment. Before I go into those quotes, guys, if you're watching this and you like my stuff and you want daily Tottenham Hotspur transfer news and transfer talk from Spurs and across the Premier League, please do subscribe to my channel if you're not already a subscriber. Trying to get to 15,000 subscribers. It's been a bit of a slow time on YouTube at the moment because, as a lot of YouTube content creators, especially Spurs fans, will tell you, not many people are interested in watching Tottenham content at the moment because it's been so poor on the pitch for Spurs. It's really affecting all of us. So it's been a bit of a slow burn getting from between 14,000 and 15,000 subscribers. But if you're not a subscriber and you like the cut of these kind of videos, please do press that subscribe button. Also, do press like on this video if you haven't already, and let's get it seen by as many Spurs fans as possible. According to Fabrizio Romano, Ange Postecoglou's hopes of keeping his job at Spurs are now entirely linked and strictly linked to his performances in this Europa League. So he has to basically win it if he wants to keep his job. I've heard lots of people saying that maybe even if we did win the Europa League, Ange should still lose his job because of the league situation this season. I disagree. If he wins the Europa League, I think give him the key and let him keep building. But it's a big if, isn't it? Eintracht Frankfurt are playing themselves into really good form in the Bundesliga again. They have experience of winning the Europa League. So they won't harbour any fears of playing Tottenham Hotspur in this two-legged match. The first leg being a week on Thursday. Before that, we've got Chelsea and Southampton. Let's try and go into that with 6 points. It's going to be very difficult, but Ange has to change something round and make some results happening for Tottenham Hotspur. Ange Postecoglou also has talked about how he believes the club got the start of their season wrong as they underestimated the impact of playing in Europe again. He said this: "It's been a tough season, there's no hiding from it. It hasn't gone anywhere near the levels that we wanted. We started off with goals and ambitions around what we wanted to achieve. There's frustration that we've seen glimpses of what we want, but then enormous setbacks, and our inconsistency, particularly in the league. We performed well in the Cups, better than last year, but in the league, we've been nowhere near it. There's obviously reasons for that, but even within that context, it's just a really disappointing season." Just to break into that, I'm really pleased that for the first time, I feel like, maybe ever, but certainly in a long time, he has referenced the fact that even despite the context of the injuries, he's still incredibly disappointed and admits it's not good enough. He went on to say, "The domino effect of certain things happening. Again, you try and assess things as you go along, but I think we got the start of the year wrong. It's becoming increasingly challenging for footballers. They don't get their traditional break, meaning the summer break. I think we went into the season really hard and underestimated the challenges of Europe with the 2 extra games, having a cup run, all those things. You add to the mix losing key players early on. It feels like we've been chasing our tails since then, and we haven't been able to get ahead of the challenges we've had. And then something else happens and it shifts again. That goes back to the start of the year. We maybe would have taken a different approach knowing the kind of season we had ahead." And that's been him talking to Optus Sport in Australia. I do think it's important that he's admitting this stuff. It feels like he's taking some responsibility at getting it wrong. I'll say it again. I love Ange Postecoglou. I'd love it to work out for him. But no excuses. 16th in the league it's going to be at the end of this week, I think. And the worst season in Premier League history for Tottenham, more than likely at the end of the season. It looks to me very unlikely we're going to get enough points to make that not happen. So it's all on the Europa League. But like I said, it will all be forgiven, Big Ange, if you can bring home that trophy. Get on an open bus parade down the Tottenham High Road and you can have the keys, mate. You can have a statue. You can have a stand named after you as far as I'm concerned, because it would shut all the opposition fans up and it would shut up those of us, frankly, who are not sure that you have got what it takes to make it happen for Spurs, because it's not only about it being 16th in the league this season. It's basically the entire form for Big Ange and his team at Tottenham since the first 10 games of last season. Incredibly mediocre, if not worse. In terms of his own security in his job, Ange said this: I've always said I hate telling people how they should feel. There's no doubt that a large portion of Tottenham fans have lost belief in what we're doing. I guess the biggest way we can influence that is by giving them hope. Still got things to play for in Europe, and we've got to try and finish the season off in a positive way. So he knows the situation. How much pressure must be on that man? I feel for him. But if he's as good a manager as he believes he is, and as the fans of the clubs that he's previously managed believe he is, then maybe that brilliance will now show itself in the quarterfinals, the semi-finals, and the final of the Europa League in Bilbao. Can he do it? I really hope he does. But relevantly, if he doesn't do it, and he doesn't take us to European glory, then the reality is he will lose his job. And this is why Fabrizio Romano and other reporters are now talking regularly about who will come in as the next manager of Tottenham Hotspur. Romano said this today: some sources have guaranteed that Spurs appreciate Inter Simone Inzaghi. However, he's fully focused on the Inter project. He doesn't look like a realistic, easy opportunity for Spurs, with Inter also very happy with their coach. That makes sense to me. I've talked before about the Simone Inzaghi links. I don't know why he would leave Inter Milan, where he's doing a good job, to come to Spurs. The only reason I can think it is if he desperately wants to join a Premier League club, and that's always been his goal. The reality of that is, even though Spurs are as low as they are in the Premier League, we are, let's face it, in terms of revenue and tradition now, a proper top six club. And Simeone, if he's desperate to move to the Premier League, I don't think many of the other top six clubs are going to lose their manager anytime soon. So that could be an opportunity he looks to, but I'm not sure. According to Paul O'Keefe, Inzaghi and Edin Terzic are Fabio Paratici's favourites if Ange is sacked. And if the reports are true and Fabio Paratici does stay at Spurs this summer, he will have a big say alongside Johan Lang, Scott Munn and Daniel Levy as to who they go for next. Some other reports this week that Bayern Munich are considering cutting Matthias Tell's loan deal at Spurs short so he can play for them in the Club World Cup. In preparation for the inaugural edition of that tournament, which happens in mid-June, Bayern are giving serious consideration to recalling all of their loan players before the tournament begins. That seems unlikely to me, but let's see what happens. I think this week is a great opportunity for Matthias Tell to show what he's got for Spurs. He'll get some game time, whatever happens against Chelsea, probably coming off the bench, and then you'd expect that Ange will rotate against Southampton and he'll get a chance to start off the left again then. Okay, let's get into these financial results that were released yesterday by Tottenham Hotspur. Their annual results, they have to release them. So the figures were: revenue, £528 million, up 4% from the previous year. Wages, £222 million, down 12%. That has kicked up a storm amongst the Spurs fan base. Wages were £42 for every £100 income, so down £4. Amortisation, £136 million, which is up 25%. Underlying loss before player sales, £59 million, so up 7%. A lot of these losses due to the fact that Tottenham not in European competition for the financial year of these reports. Player sale profits, £82 million, up 431%. Got to assume that is because of the Harry Kane sale in the most part, who of course we got £100 million for. Pre-tax loss of £29 million, which is down 70%. Player purchases £272 million. Gross squad cost estimate £697 million. Player sales receivables £58 million. Player purchase payables £441 million. And borrowings £872 million. That is a part of it that goes untalked about at Spurs. Huge debt, the most in-debt club in football, in world football, because of the stadium. And I know we have that debt on manageable interest rates for the next 30 years, but you cannot tell me, no one can tell me and make me believe that it doesn't make a difference. Of course it makes a difference. However, like I said in the opening, the fact that Daniel Levy gave the following statement when he is earning more than £6 million a year for his job, I think is unbelievable. This is the statement he gave. As we announce our financial results for the year of ending 30th of June 24, we currently find ourselves in 14th position in the Premier League, navigating what has been a highly challenging season on the pitch. We are, however, in the quarterfinals of the Europa League. Winning this competition would see welcome silverware and mean qualification for the Champions League. We must do everything we can to support the team in these final key stages. Since opening the new stadium in April 2019, we've invested over £700 million net in player acquisitions. Recruitment remains a key focus, and we must ensure that we make smart purchases within our financial means. I often read calls for us to spend more, given that we are ranked as the 9th richest club in the world. However, a closer examination of today's financial figures reveals that such spending must be sustainable in the long term and within our operating revenues. Our capacity to generate recurring revenues determines our spending power. We cannot spend what we do not have, and we will not compromise the financial stability of this club. Indeed, our off-pitch revenues have significantly supplemented the lower football revenues this year, testament to our diversified income strategy. I want to thank everyone who supports the club through good times and bad. We are resilient and passionate about our club. We shall aim to finish this season as strongly as we can and continue to build for success on the pitch. Now, the bit I agree with him with, and it's hard for some fans to stomach, is we do not have reserves of cash. We do not. I know it's frustrating, but we are not Abu Dhabi, we are not Saudi Arabia, and we are not Clear Lake Capital. There is not endless reserves of cash in the bank. The way that the company is run, ENIC, by Daniel Levy, is the same as it ever has been and was ever promised to be, which is sustainably through the revenues of the club. I know that's frustrating, but that is why they are looking for minority investments or a potential sale to try and get cash flow into the club so that then they can use the high revenues. And this is what he's talking about here. We are able to still spend money on transfer fees because of the high revenues brought into the club by the new stadium, how much more money that brings on match days, but also through the Formula One karting, through the Beyonce concerts, the Chris Brown concerts. I know, not a good look optically, I realise that. And all of the other concerts, the NFL, etc., etc. So when fans complain about that, when fans complain about the fact that Tottenham are deemed now more to be an entertainment venue than a football club, I'm afraid you do have to take into account the fact that without those revenues since 2019, we would be spending far less money on transfers than we have. And we are third or fourth in the net transfer spend since 2019. But the argument about the wages is indeed a valid one. They are incredibly low, 40% of revenue. It's very, very low. And that is because we haven't rebuilt in terms of box fresh ready first team players since we sold the likes of Kane, Lloris, Dyer, Højbjerg and more, Ndombele, Lo Celso, the ones who are on big wages. We've reinvested a lot of the money into transfer fees for younger players on lower wages. So that does need to go up. I agree with that. But my overall point, where I think it's shameful, and that's why I've put that in the title of this video, is that he is on £6 million a year over that. That is more than £4 million more than any other director at any other football club in the Premier League. So for him to double down like this, and this comes across to me like an angry statement from Daniel Levy. It comes across to me as a statement where he's saying, you know, I hate that you guys are complaining. You don't know how lucky you are. This club would be nothing without us. Well, okay, Daniel, you've done a good job. And the revenue streams diversified into lots of different things is good and good business. But the reality is, you shouldn't be complaining and almost having a go at fans for their complaints at the fact that we are 14th in the league, soon to go down to 16th in the league, when you are earning £6 million and frankly being greedy. At this stage, I think Daniel Levy should say to the fans, I'm going to take no money. I'm going to take no dividends. I am a multi-millionaire. I don't need to. I'm not going to take any money until Tottenham are successful on the pitch. And when Tottenham are successful on the pitch, I will take what I deserve then. That's how I feel now. And I think that would be smart. I'm not saying Daniel Levy would ever do it, but he should do it. he should do it to show the fans that he does see this as a football club, and he does see it that the success on the pitch is the most vital part of this football club. It doesn't have to be the only part of the football club, but it has to be the most important part. That is my suggestion to you, Daniel Levy. Like I said in the opening, I'll stick up for you when I think you've made a good decision. The ground is a great decision. The diversifying of revenue streams is a good decision. It helps us in the long term, medium to long term. But in the short term, taking £6 million wages, looking like a greedy man, and then having a pop at the Spurs fans for wanting better on the pitch, that is not impressive. And I'm afraid, Daniel, I hope you learn from it because it's really not good. Okay, guys, just a few bits of other news before I let you go. Spurs loanees Yang Min-hyuk and Alfie Dorrington scored their first goals for their respective loan clubs, QPR and Aberdeen, at the weekend. Well done them. Westerlo Vice President Hassan Ketinkaya has said the following about Luka Vuskovic and having him back at their club next season. He said, "That is a dream, but I don't think it'll come true. Spurs are very happy with the progress he has made here in Belgium, and he'll soon start preparing for the new season in London." So we will see Vuskovic at Spurs next season. And I'm sure you've heard, but the madness that is this announcement that Tottenham will play Arsenal in Hong Kong on July the 31st at 7:30 p.m. in a friendly game. Oh my God, talk about an opportunity for lots of Spurs and Arsenal fans to fly out on flights to Hong Kong on a boozed up jolly and get in fights miles away from home. Not the smartest move ever. I can only imagine how much money Tottenham are being paid to do that. Because it doesn't seem like a good idea to me. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. Really appreciate it. Please do subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber. Daily Tottenham content, daily Tottenham news and transfer content as we get close to that window opening. Also, you can listen to it on the podcast platforms. Just go to Apple or Spotify, type in the Spurred On podcast, give me a follow or subscribe there. And enjoy the rest of your Tuesdays, guys. Only 2 days till Tottenham away at Chelsea. What could possibly go wrong? Come on, you Spurs.